Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back. This is the M3 Podcast. We got the MMG squad on, Dalton, Logan, Ricky. So we've already been discussing a lot of things, and I don't know, we have a lot of things going on in market. We got a lot of things that discussing book-wise, a lot of things happening at the office. So we'll just continue in our conversations that we've been having. But to the point of what we were talking about with the comfort crisis, I think that's something that actually I think very much plays a lot of where we're at right now as a company, where we're at least where I'm at personally, and on a lot of different forefronts. So Logan's listening to it right now. I'm reading it right now. I actually, it was probably like 2-3 weeks ago, I had somebody reach out that wanted to do a 4-week challenge. He's like, hey, I just need to get a little bit of discipline back in place, a few things. And he goes, you want to read a book together and keep each other accountable going to the gym. And it was, that lasted, well, when he texted me that, he texted me a list of like 4 different books. And the funny thing was the Comfort Crisis was like the second one. And I bought that book probably 5 months ago. I sat next to my bed, sat there for like 3 days, ended up going in my stack of books, everything else.
Everybody's got one.
I know.
Everybody's got a stack.
And it's like,
I can tell you exactly where mine's at right now.
And I got onto other books, and I actually kind of fell off the wagon for the last probably 3 to 4 months on just reading as a whole. And it's funny how you get off on something, and it's always like, I'll have some in a second. It's funny how you always like, at least for me, and it could be different for anybody else, I'm really good at certain things, and then when I get really good at reading, then I might fall off on my working out, and then I might fall off on discipline at work, and then I might fall off on discipline in my relationship, and it's like really trying to hone all those things in together.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast habits come and go. It's like, if we talk about this, Ricky, if I don't have the time set aside in my day for reading, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's like we need to just, the first 30 minutes of the day, get there 30 minutes earlier to the office and say we're going to read that.
And it also, what you were talking about earlier, in the mornings, I believe your brainwaves are more in the alpha stages and stuff, so you're more impressionable. So it would just be a better time to read anyways. And I doubt many of us are going to be reading in the evenings. We typically have quite a bit going on. And if I try to read before bed, I just fall asleep.
So the weird thing is I tell Mass, so Mass is always like, read before you go to sleep. And I don't know why I'm not somebody that reads like fiction books. Like I like the self-help books. I like the personal development, to where when I'm reading those things, it almost like amplifies me more.
Yeah.
To where I get in bed and like I'll feel tired and I start reading. And when I read, I also listen to the book. I listen and read at the same time. And Alex Ramosi taught me that in his book, that you retain, an astronomical amount more.
And then if you take notes on it, you retain even more.
So I'll normally have a highlighter. I put my headphones in, and I go after my book. And it's crazy that I'll feel like I'm tired. I get into bed, and then all of a sudden my brain like fires back up. I'm like, fuck. Like, I'm wide awake.
I agree with you on like the motivational stuff in that realm for me. But like, if I'm listening to a business book, which I would consider to be like something on like marketing strategy or something, like Gary Vee's latest book,
that shit does put me to sleep.
That I will literally turn the audiobook of Gary Vee's latest book on if I cannot sleep. And it just knocks me out. So I haven't made it through that book yet. I'm struggling with that one.
I do have that book, and that is was added to my collection too. And I tried to start that book like 3-4 nights in a row. Dude, it leveled me like within like 5 minutes.
Right. So I'm not past like page 1.
Dude, no.
It's in my stack of books that's at the office.
Yeah. I don't know. And the other thing too that I've talked to a lot of people about this lately too, and I think it was a poor kind of habit that I was getting to is I've gotten so into like being around higher level people that I've gotten so many great takeaways and I've gotten so many things that have moved myself forward that I think a lot of times that I was looking for answers in books, that you're going to have those great key takeaways, just like reading The Comfort Crisis. Like, I haven't gotten like a single thing in there that all of a sudden is going to like change Moss Market Group overnight. Are there good things to change your perspective and good like keynotes to have? For sure. But I think for a long time I was searching for answers through a lot of the reading that I did, and I started finding a lot of the answers in people that I know, and I think that's where I kind of backed off.
Yeah, and you're gonna find the answers in certain books. Like I would say the one for you that you found the most in was Traction.
Yeah,
like it literally did change MMG to a certain degree,
100%,
a big degree. So you'll get stuff from different books. You know, like I think there's a stat out there that like if you retain, you know, 1 or 2 key pages from a book, it was worth reading because that's something that you're going to take away from it.
Yeah.
But it's such a small amount that you're going to remember. But then you're going to come across that book that it might just, you know, click for you at some point in business, life, relationships, whatever it is, that it's just that magic piece that you were missing.
Which that's where I think on The Comfort Crisis. So I'm on chapter 13. And I've listened to it twice already in the last like 2-3 weeks. And so I've been reading it, and then I've been walking every day, doing like 2.5 miles. There's a loop. I can go out my house, go up Flintlock, come back around. It's exactly 2.5 back to my door. And I've been taking Duke on walks or Oakley. And like last week on our podcast, I went out at 9:45 at night because I hadn't got my walk in for the day. And
that actually might have helped your blood pressure the next morning.
It probably did.
Yeah.
My blood pressure was good. And but I've been listening to it, and like if I didn't fully retain the last chapter, I just listened to it again, like, and just some of like the key stats that it had in it, with that the average American right now is on digital 11 hours a day, like, and it's average college students on their phone 7 hours a day right now. And it was like some of those stats that you're getting out there, I'm like, that's just wild, because I was sitting there thinking about it from a marketing standpoint.
Not for you. Not 2.5.
And I was thinking about it from a marketing standpoint, that it's crazy that it even solidifies what we're doing that much more. In no way, shape, or form do I agree with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a terrible thing in our world, because in the book it's talking about just really actually experiencing the outdoors. And I mean, they talk about the evolution of dogs, that dogs are like 99.9% DNA of wolves. And they also talk about like dogs, the only animal on the planet that understands human gestures, which I had no idea. They can't even teach monkeys that. Like human gestures from monkeys, like they did like a cup deal, and monkeys could not figure out like when a human would point to something.
Really?
But dogs can figure out immediately.
Something they've evolved as they've lived.
Yeah, like they can figure out, if they can use your signals to figure out which cup the treats are under.
Yeah.
And monkeys can't do it.
And it was crazy too that they're talking about the evolution of dogs and wolves with humans.
Yeah.
And wolves used to follow humans because they knew that humans could hunt and acquire food.
For scraps of food.
Yep. And it was just like, it's crazy stuff that comes from reading that book, that in the last 3 weeks, just like those tidbits of knowledge that comes from it. And I think that's also just continuing that education side too, that no matter where you get, sometimes you'll get stagnant. And I felt a little stagnant in just certain areas. And I started reading that, and like 3-4 chapters in, that's when I was like, we need to sit down with Adam. We need to bring Adam in. We're going to start sales side. And we're like, let's go get as uncomfortable as we fucking possibly can. We'll figure it out. Like, that's the biggest movement that we've ever made every single time we do it. Why not keep doing it? And you could say that you're get comfortable living in an uncomfortable state, but then sometimes I look at it, I'm like, really? Am I that uncomfortable? I'm like, I don't know. So
And looking back over the years of the things that we thought were uncomfortable at certain points, now it's like, that's nothing. You know, it's all, you continue to like evolve and build your knowledge base and kind of your tolerance for discomfort the more that you do it. And not saying that, you know, you should seek out discomfort to an unhealthy degree, but like, as long as it's in the right ways, it's going to be productive for you, because you're going to grow from it one way or another. Even if it doesn't go right and it blows up in your face, you're going to know what not to do the next time and what to avoid.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot on like what we're reading. And I think that, I mean, from a business standpoint, the amount of change that we've had happen in the last 6 months is wild.
Yeah. Unrecognizable, I would say.
For real. I feel like I've moved more in the last 6 months than we did the first 3.5 years we were open. Like, not even like take finances, take business, take all that movement out of it. Like me personally, I feel like I've moved more in the last 6 months of just a mind space, a education level, true understanding of what it really takes to be a leader. And I think it was the first time I really became open to getting real feedback. And I think this year has just been crazy movement for us. And it's like, I've seen it through everyone sitting at this table too. I've seen the evolution, the progression of everyone here too, that it's unrecognizable on the way that Ricky talks to a client now in a sale. I sit there and I look at it, and it's like the word tracks, the verbiage, the knowledge side of talking marketing is just a whole different level. I look at when you two are talking strategy to a company, and when you're talking the ad side, when you're talking to actually running the people in the marketing forefront, like it's something that I dreamed of one day, to like be where we're at now. And we also have, I mean, the sales side is our final puzzle piece. And I sit and I think about, we're going to do a market update where we're at MMG now. We're going to do one here in 3 months, and it's going to be, we're going to do in the next three months what it took us 4 years to do to get here. Like, no questions asked.
Yep.
Like, it's almost kind of like weird to look at. And like Alex Hormozy talks about that it takes a really long time. Like, getting rich fast is actually really easy. It takes a long time to get the knowledge to get rich fast.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been digging down for the last 4 years so that we could build the foundation and put it in place.
Yep.
And we've got the foundation in place now, and it's time to build a fucking skyscraper.
It is. And I think about it now is like when we talk about this at the office, when we talk about it to other people, it's for a long time I felt like I was just like a teacher, like all the time. And I was like, am I in the right thing? Like, and I was like, did I do the right thing hiring a bunch of people that have no marketing side? Like, but I also think about that once again, I bet on people that I knew had the right characteristics and the right character traits to be the people of MMG. And now it's like I look at it all coming to fruition, and like all those stars aligning, and that foundation being something that a year ago it was terrifying hiring somebody. We've hired 3 people this week. Like,
and it's Wednesday.
Yeah, we still got 2 more days this week. We probably will hire another person or 2 this week. We have 2 more spots to fill this week. Like, we're going to go from, we'll have a week that's probably damn near a 5-person hiring week. I remember that when it was Dre and I trying to pull the trigger on Dalton, I mean, that took us like a week to sit there. We were like, oh no, man. Like,
They're crunching numbers.
there weren't a lot of numbers to crunch.
Well, they were trying to figure out where you were going to sit.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's already too crowded in this bedroom.
We can get
we're
another
in.
chair up in the bedroom.
Yeah. When we mathed at that point, it was pretty easy math. I mean, we were doing first grade math at that level.
A couple numbers.
Yeah. Hey, we got 4 numbers here. This is what it adds to. If we deduct these 3, this is where we're at.
Yep.
Those were the days.
Go back to photo and cars.
Oh, we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
We get the right offer, we're back in the business.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a lot of really cool things are happening right now. I think we're at a very pivotal spot in business that I think it's one of those things that you just sit there and you keep pressing, you trust the process, stay the course of what you're doing. And it's funny every time that we make like another step forward that I thought a year ago, we're like, oh, we're at a big turning point. But now I look at from a process side that, I mean, we have leadership meetings every week on strictly just the process forefront that what we figure out in the mountains that we move in a 7-day work week now is wild.
But it makes sense though, right? Like in the beginning, it was just you trying to solve, and you know, at a certain point, Dre stepped into that too. You guys trying to solve problems, and all of us working on the business. We're not quite there, but we're pretty close to a point to where a lot of us have been able to remove ourselves from a lot of the day-to-day stuff. So now we have 7 to 8, you know, high-level thinkers focusing on process. How do we get more out of this? We achieve more in those 2 hours, meeting all of us collectively and putting our brains together than we could 40 hours individually, all trying to solve the problems on our own.
Which that was I had a meeting today with somebody and we were discussing things and he's like, how do you solve the problems that you do? And I'm like, it's not me anymore. I go, I have a wild idea. And I go, I bring it into a room of 6 other high level thinkers. And I go, and they normally, I go, I haven't surrounded myself with yes men. I go, I want to know what's wrong with what's wrong with my solution. And I also told him straight up, I go, a year and a half ago, I wasn't very open-minded. I'm going to say I was very bullheaded in what I did. And I think I become better as we progress. But I think the more times I've been, I don't want to say proved wrong, but the more mistakes I make as taking my maybe decision or idea and just running full speed with it into a brick wall that ends up failing. I'm like, I need more feedback on this. And I mean, this week we had a lot of breakthroughs, but last week I had an idea that I was pretty much dead set in stone on what we were going to do. And at the end of an hour and a half, 2 hours, we had reconstructed an idea that was 1,000 times better than mine. That if you would have given me 6 weeks to still think about the same problem, I would have never came to the conclusion that we did as a group.
It's just so good to have different perspectives on things. Because if you get stuck in one way of looking at it, you're never going to see the other solutions.
And you don't have the full picture, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're working on the sales, Dane is working on the overall movement of the company, Dalton and I are in the marketing leg, and then we've got Lauren on the content leg. We're all very different in what we're looking at day to day. You know, it all collectively works together, but you're going to bring so much more on that front than I am for any type of sales discussion. We'll be able to provide more insight on the marketing side. And then it's helpful too, whenever you hear another person's point of view, you then get to think about that same problem that they've been thinking about. And even though you're not in it, you might be able to offer a solution based on something similar that you've dealt with.
Yeah. And sometimes it's better not having the full context of everything.
For real.
Sometimes it's better to
Sometimes
just
you put these blinders on to everything that you're watching. And I think it's like crazy how many businesses we enter and we get like involved with. They're like, did you think about this, this, and this? And they literally look at us like we have, like we just came in with like a magic, like a staff, like we're out of like Harry Potter.
We
We
cast
have
a
magic.
spell.
Like they're like, where did you come up with that? I'm
Yeah.
like, how did you not think of that? Like,
it's obvious.
but
It was right there the whole time.
Yeah.
but sometimes it just takes that outside perspective. And I think sometimes we bring a value in just a single idea that's worth more than anything that we cost. And that's the reason that these big, huge companies, that's the difference between like monster companies to small business, is a lot of times these huge companies are like, okay, our marketing team is hitting a wall right now, go find a consultant that comes in that can open up and shed a new light. That isn't in this industry all day, every day. They can look at it and say, hey, did you look at this, this, and this? How can we become better? Same thing with the finance side. Same thing with, there's CEO consultants out there that come in, and it's like, that's where I kind of struggle with a lot of, it's funny, like we broke a threshold that like we get a lot of eyeballs on what we do now. I get probably 2 to 3 people a week reaching out trying to get me into these like CEO coaching groups. And it's like,
for them to coach you or for you to coach them?
For them to coach me. Which
that is so the high ticket thing for the mastermind guru guys right now is like going over after the CEOs and entrepreneurs.
I've been seeing ads for that too.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a, I don't know if I'm wrong for not exploring something like that, but the only thing that I feel that I'm in a way different position is that I work side by side with CEOs every day, that I have explored those conversations and became friends with these people. And I explored to become help to them and them to help me. And I think it's like put me on like a hyperdrive that I've met with a lot of guys that are way bigger than anything we've done so far. Like you need to make sure that you're open to the ideas of your team. You need to make sure like a lot of them, like you've already started a leadership team. That's like huge. That's like something that took us a long time to figure out to do, to where it's like a lot of these different things. Like I feel like I get a lot of help on the coaching already from a internal kind of group that I've almost like built surrounding me, that I know that we're not internal in the company, but like an external group that I'm very close friends with now. And I can seek out when I have those problems. I'll even sit down, I'll pitch it to them. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm kind of running into, like thoughts, things like that. And then they'll also pitch things back to me that I can give them a fresh perspective. So it's like, that's where I kind of wonder, and like I struggle sometimes where, especially where these like CEOs, some of these guys that are selling it have never even been a CEO, which is wild.
So I think a lot of them are like the peak performance type guys though. So if you like increase your time management by 20%, I think why they go after the CEOs is because if you have 20% more production, then that's huge if you're running a business.
For sure. And I think a lot of them too, which I think a lot of them go after like personal discipline, a lot of like personal habits. Like, are you going to the gym? Are you doing like all these other things? Are you reading? Are you like doing all like the self-development? Because I think you probably do get stuck in just a lot of these companies get stagnant and they get to this like, just kind of like, this is where we're at. I get up, I go to work every day. I manage these people. I go home. We
do maybe 10% better this year than last year.
But I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, our percentage growth year over year is ridiculous. And I feel like I'm a very driven person. Like, I don't feel like I need help with the motivation or the drive side. Like, I feel like when I get up in the morning, I'm fucking dialed. Like, I'm ready. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't have that, to where they're searching for other help. And I think there's a lot of CEOs and they get married to their business, and then they struggle with their relationship at home. They struggle with a lot of these other things, which I've had a couple meetings with a couple of these guys, and it's like they start touching on that stuff. I'm like, marriage is the best it's ever been. I'm like, I feel like that's something I actually hold that higher than I do business. Like, that was something that I went through 3 years in the car business, that was not a priority, that wasn't in the top 3 things. And I saw what it did, to where it's like, I've reprioritized things in my life, but it's like, because I've prioritized those things correctly, I also feel like it makes me a better leader. That when I struggled watching people and following someone, that I'm like, your relationship at home with your wife is terrible. Your relationship with your kids is terrible. Like, yeah, you might have money, but I didn't look up to those people as like, that's the leader. Like, I want people to look up to me if I'm in that leadership spot, that it's like, his relationship with his wife is the most impressive relationship that I've seen. When I have kids, like, the people that I surround myself, like, I'll give a shout out to Brock. Like, Brock, I respect Brock from, same thing with Tyler Thorne, a lot of these guys that I'm around, same thing with Brent. Like, those are all guys that have kids Same thing with Stephen Ross. I mean, there's a grove of them. Same thing with Adam, Todd Gentry,
Joe Brancato.
Joe. Like, I look at these people and I have a respect from a business side, and I have a very high level of respect of the way that their home forefront is. And those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with. Is like, it's the relationship with their kids are right. Same thing with Sal and Julie. Like, hang out with them all the time. Like, there's just this whole group of people, like Amber and Boyan. The list goes on and on of this like circle that's became so solid. And it's like all those people have done really well in business. But my big ticker of why I like being around those people and what I talk to them about is, how did you make your relationship at home as great as it is? How's your relationship with your kids? Like, I think one of the coolest things is when I leave in the morning, most of the time I pass Sal and Julie taking the kids to the school on the golf cart. Like, Sal's like, dude, it's a non-negotiable. He goes, I take the kids to school every single morning on the golf cart. They love it. That there, money cannot buy.
Yeah.
You can't buy that back. I don't care how well you do in business, whatever. Like, when you're buried at the end of your lifetime, that's something that's remembered. So I know a lot of guys that have a lot of fucking money that have nothing. Towards like, I think those are things that I don't know what a CEO coach teaches, but all those people that are around me, I've learned a lot more from, of just who the man is that I want to be, way more than I think a CEO coach I can pay to figure out. I may be totally wrong, but that's my spiel on that.
I feel like I don't know how to follow that up.
I don't know.
I agree with you.
There's only one way to find out, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that I could see in that realm is like the little efficiencies.
Yeah.
You know, the time management. They're not complete. If it's going to be worthwhile, they're not going to completely change the person that you are or the way that you operate and believe and think. They're going to help you be more efficient with how you run those things and manage your time and thoughts, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. What do you think about and what do you spend your time doing?
And having somebody that holds you accountable for whatever it is, that's a big part of it too.
That huge part
Which
of it.
I feel like the leadership group's pretty good about that, to me, my direction. That I feel like it's the same thing that I've worked on teaching. I mean, Ricky and I went round and round for a long time.
It's true.
On where his time was most efficiently spent.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think one of the best things we ever did were those personality tests, because I'm like, there's times I'm like, I don't know why this doesn't make sense to Ricky. And then after we do those personality tests, like, Ricky very much wants to have a very clear, calculated path of where he's going. My path is never fucking calculated. I'm just that way. Like, we're going. And is that a great trait to have? Yeah, sometimes it's a curse. Sometimes I run into failure really fast, but it's after understanding that, it was something that I understood to start taking that more into consideration. And it's like, I also understood how to then help Ricky get to those next steps, progress. Same thing with you guys. Like, I mean,
so when you're thinking about trying to get someone to like elevate them or coach someone, you have to think about, you can't just like, if we're thinking about how to elevate our team, we can't just, tell them exactly what we want them to do and be harsh with it, because they're not going to receive it well. You have to think about it from their perspective. And that's exactly the personality test that you're talking about. It's thinking about how what your message is going to be perceived when it comes across the other person. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a good book to just in life to start with, to learn, hey, ask people more questions about themselves than they ask you. If I get done with a conversation and I feel like I know nothing about the person, they probably like me a lot because I asked them a lot about them and they got to share their story. I might not have got to share mine. And if they never, if it's a friendship and they are never asking about my story, then I'm not going to feel like I'm getting my part out of the relationship. But when you're meeting people, that's a good psychology trick to have.
I think also the psychology in business that took me a long time was, I thought that because I had the role I had, that I needed to make these decisions. That same thing, like when leadership team, we go over health insurance. It would have been really easy for me to sit down and just say, hey, this is what we're going with, blah, blah, blah. But I look at it as like, I knew you guys would probably all have the same decision. I was pretty close to thinking. So I'm like, I told Dre, I was like, I don't want to make decisions. Just bring it to the leadership group. Let them make it. But it's like me focusing on two, like giving those decisions up, that it's going to matter in the future. And it's like, it also helps kind of give me more confidence when it's like, okay, this is my decision. I'm going to pitch it and I'm going to let them make the decision. We'll see if it aligns. And then as it's been happening, I've seen that, like, I play into it all the time, and it's like, this is a decision I could make, or I'm going to give the power here and I'm going to let them figure it out. And it's funny, most of the time the choice is still the same as what I would have done. So then I'm like, my confidence is like growing and growing and growing, that it's just something that it also, from your guys' side, I'm assuming feels more powerful, that we're having more of a say, but then it also makes it to where I can allocate in the future, that I know I can allocate my time in a different direction, that I'm never going to have to use it on those things, that I know I have the group of people standing around me that can make those, that are still very important choices, that I put the right group in to do it. And I think a lot of business owners never have that. And it's, you stand in a room, you stand in a corner and you're making choices and decisions every day. You have no earthly idea if they're right or not, but you're just making them. And that's how I felt for a long time. And that's why I feel so great of where we're at now, because it's the first time I don't feel like I have to make every single decision.
And it also just helps like the team morale as a whole if people are giving input to something. Like if you're in a situation where a boss comes in and they just say, hey, this is what we're doing, and somebody else might have a good idea, somebody has a good idea, a few people have some bad ideas, but if they don't have the chance to explore any of those ideas and the boss comes in and just says, hey, this is what we're doing, that's not a great feeling. No. And if they can give that input and at least be heard a little bit and have a chance to give their perspective on things, even if the group doesn't go with their decision, it kind of diffuses some of that.
Because it was
the thing to add to that, and why that works so well, is because then it is a group decision. And even if it isn't my decision, I know that a majority of the people are making that decision. Yep. So it's not just one person. It's not just Dane's making this decision. It's, okay, Dane, Ricky, Dre, and Dalton all agreed on that. I don't agree with them, but I know that they're smart, and I probably got to go with what they're saying. I'm not going to give any pushback because it's all of them.
Which it was a conversation. I had a conversation with Lauren like 3 weeks ago, that we were going to a PAL meeting. And I told her that she'd been in all the leadership meetings. And I told her, I was like, I want you to voice your opinion more. And she is the only female in the group. And I know that she felt like she was compressed a little bit. But I told her, I was like, still voice what you have. In the last 2 meetings, she's been more vocal than ever before. And it's like she has brought a lot of value to those meetings. And that's where I looked at it as like, I'm not putting anybody in that room that just fucking is in there to hear us out. And it's like, and I feel like it's becoming, and to Ricky's point, I wasn't always the best at hearing everyone's idea out to move forward. So it's like,
none
I was at fault to that.
Yeah,
you really weren't. You weren't.
I know.
You were a little my way or the highway.
Dalton pops back in the pocket.
I'm not covering for you.
But I know I was that way, and it was something that my dad was that way very much with me too. And I always knew how my dad operated, because I knew if I put the idea out there and he would hear it, it was his way or the highway. And then that idea would be implemented 3-4 weeks later. And it's like, he would hear it. He just didn't hear it at the moment. So, and it always frustrated me. And it's like, and I saw that I was doing the same thing. And
it's just like you said before, if you could get him to believe that it was his idea, then it was all 100% on board.
Exactly. So then that's the same thing where I'm like, I feel like I'm much better right now. There's things that I know I have to work on, I have to become better at. But it's also those small things I put in place that I like kind of test the leadership group. I do it all around the office. I test people on I want to give them the problem to solve, even though I have a solution in my head. I want to see where they go with it. Mm-hmm. And then when they do something that aligns very similar with me, it starts building confidence in me and that person. Then I'm like, okay, maybe they got it. And like, as they progress forward, and sometimes I don't always agree with the solution all the time. I'm like, we'll let it pan out, see what happens. I've been wrong a lot, made a lot of mistakes to this point. Those are the things you learn from.
Mm-hmm.
I wish at some points I was better at listening to everyone earlier on. Probably could have progressed forward a little faster. But I think being around the right people, getting the right insights, things like that. We're 5 years from now, we're going to look back at this and we're going to be like, wow, we really sucked. Like, if we knew what we know now, boy, could we have moved forward.
We're going to think that next year.
I know.
Yeah.
We're going to think that in a couple months.
For real.
Yeah.
Like, but I think a lot of times those meetings that we have, that we went from having once every God knows when.
Shoot, I think we said
Well,
when we started it, we said once a month.
I think we went like
And then we're
2
like,
or 3 months.
It took us 4 months to get our core values outlined
Yeah.
because we were meeting twice in 4 months.
There it was.
And then it's like we're restarting every time because we don't remember what we talked about.
But I think that's something that when you just carve out that time, that we're solving really big problems and we're solving a higher. And I think early days in business, I came from a space, I watched a lot of these big car dealers that just have meetings on about when their next meeting is, and it just becomes meetings. And they're not really solving any like problems in those meetings.
It's just talking.
Yeah, they're just kind of doing
And
it.
the worst thing about a meeting is then you talk about everything and then there's no action steps and nothing gets done. Like,
Trust me.
yeah.
My story this morning was so much about that because I was sitting there thinking about watching the debate last night and how frustrated I was with that. And then 2, I go to the gym this morning.
You were thinking about how Dalton and I didn't have the binders time.
No, but not even that. Like, and I know we put a lot of actionable steps into place each week, and I get so frustrated with business owners when I talk to them and they have this like grand goal and they have this vision, they have all this stuff that they want to do, but they put nothing in place to get there. And I'm like, your words mean nothing at that point. And
Do you feel like that's too much of having the visionary personality that we talk about and not having that integrator side or that person there to be like, what's the next steps? Or is it just in some cases, I feel like it could be that. And in some cases it's just laziness.
Half the time they have a good idea. They just don't know how to implement it. It's like, well, that would be great, but like, how do I actually make that happen?
That's like the visionary integrator conversation.
Maybe they don't have.
Which I don't know if we've talked about that on here. If you want to go into that too.
Like to the book Rocket Fuel very much talks about like, and this was something that I read very early on, and it was probably 4 years ago that I read it. It's probably something I need to reread again. Like it's probably one of those books I'd read it again and probably find more insights in it this time. But people have very unique skill sets in what they do. And Rocket Fuel talks about that Henry Ford had a brother and Walt Disney had a brother and the McDonald's were 2 brothers. That you look at all these big, huge companies that were formed, that Henry Ford was the visionary, but they don't see the brother was right behind him making sure everything was integrated. And it's like, it was funny. It was something when I read it, it hit home so much because I see that with Dre and I so much that we run on 2 different wavelengths of what we do. And the crazy thing is too, I look at my mom and my dad, like they're on 2 completely different pathways of who they are. And one is not right and one is not wrong. But my dad's always been the visionary, things like that. My dad was very, very successful with my mom, like in those days where she was the integrator behind him. And it's like, I look at it as like, I can't control the wake behind me. The vision's so grand and so crazy that most people look at it as crazy. But the other thing too, is everyone looks at everything I talk about and it becomes a reality. Like, and you can have the vision, and the vision to me is so clear. And I mean, I've had talks with Ricky about it. He's like, I think that needs to be re-emphasized more to the company. And that's what I've tried to turn a lot of our morning meetings into, is more so painting the vision of where we're going. Because the vision, to me, I get up every single day and I can see it when I'm driving to the gym in the morning. I can see the whole entire thing is crystal clear. But I also know that all these other things have to happen day in and day out to get us there. It doesn't just pop up overnight. And I know it's not something that happens overnight, but it's...
The clearer you get on that picture, though, the faster it's going to come. And if we all have a collective vision for it.
And a lot of us are the integrator type too, to where I think that's why we're having, I feel like, so much traction in what we're doing right now with the leadership group and just moving processes, is because there's that vision out there that all of us have bought in and believe in, and we're able to take it and then work on the pieces to get us there.
Yeah.
We just have to continue to paint that vision to everybody, because a lot more people are going to be the integrator than they are the visionary. And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You have to have both. Like you said, it wouldn't, like, Ford wouldn't have got there if it was just Henry Ford talking about a car that flies 70 miles an hour over the road. Like, it never would have happened.
Yeah.
So if you have a company full of integrators, that's probably almost better than having a company full of visionaries, as long as that North Star vision is painted crystal clear down to everybody.
So the thing is, like, they talk about, like, a company really only needs one visionary that's very crystal clear on what they do. And the other thing that I talk about all the time to a lot of people is, like, I have more business owners ask me about how we've put so many A players in one room. I have more people come through that are impressed with everyone they meet through Moss Marketing Group. And I think I have more business owners ask me about how to hire than anything else. And it's kind of absurd, but it's like, I told them, I was like, I care for their well-being more than mine. Like, that's the thing, is, like, I care about everyone succeeding, and it's the vision is so big that everyone fits inside of it. And I'm like, if you want to go find an A player, the conversation today, the guy wants to come to Moss Marketing Group because he found his ceiling. I left TDR because I found my ceiling. So if you want to go fill a place with A players, that vision better be so grand that everyone else's dreams fit inside of it. And it's everyone's winning. If you're going to build something that you're the only winner in the room, you're not going to get a bunch of A players in there. You're going to get employees. And that's where I look at, I've never looked at it as in, like, employees. I look at it as, like, partners and where we go. And it's, I don't know, I see that once again, sometimes it's hard for me to understand how somebody else doesn't see the vision. I think it's been the hardest thing probably with Dre. The longest time I was like, how does he not see this? In my head, I'm like, give me a piece of fucking paper, I can draw it. And then I look at that, and then I look at the dollars and cents, and what I used to do the early days of Moss Marketing Group, I would sit there and I'd draw out, or I would picture this life that I could build for everybody. And I figured out the dollars and cents that it took to do it, and I reverse engineered it all the way back to what we needed to do. Has it fully been executed every single time? Absolutely not. But those are the things where I understand we have to sit down and we have to figure out how to make that a reality. And I think for a long time, I thought just selling would fix it all. But I figured out multiple times that our foundation wasn't built correctly. I'm going to say another huge, huge asset that we've had that I'm going to say that was something way bigger that I didn't really understand. I didn't understand the need for it, was when Alex came on and started on the operations side of really, because in the beginning when he came on, we talked about him doing more of a sales side. And then he said, before I sell, can I work on kind of some of our process? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. When he started picking those apart, I was like, what do you think about doing this all the time? And he goes, I would love nothing more. But it's like, his deal too, A player came our way, saw the vision, everything like that. And he's like, I feel like that's where you just start finding those perfect fits. And I feel like we've done that over and over and over. And it's like, it's finally to a spot that it's like, felt like mass chaos for a long time. And it's the first time I don't feel like we're running out of control. And it's like, I think that's what's made the vision so clear now. is like the plug and play scalability now is changing really fast. Where we had a girl start on Tuesday that had a full onboarding like cycle the full first day. That was new.
She knew what she was gonna do
all day. I'm like, wow. Like she knew what she was gonna do every hour of that day. And like it's the first person that came on that had like Alex comes to me, he's like, hey, here's the book for her. When she starts. She has this like folder, has what she's gonna do every hour, has our core values in it, has like our MMG notepad in it, has like the MMG pins on it, like everything. I'm like, this we're like kind of like a real business. Like, wow, this is cool. But it was the first time I looked at an onboarding that I didn't have to hold that person's hand all day to make sure that something was happening. Because Logan and Dalton knew exactly what they were doing. Adam knew exactly what he was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. Dre knew exactly what he was doing. It was so clear outlined, and Alex had on everyone's calendar of what they were doing every hour with her during the day. That's like, I look back at 6 months ago, we hired somebody, we're like, hey, halfway through the day, I'm like, fuck, dude, anybody tell them what to do? We did their paperwork this morning, they fucking sat in the back room. Like, they're probably sitting back, they're like,
like, what now?
Like, but that, it's just things like that I look at that are like the small movements that I've always been so client facing that that's all I think about every day is how our products and service is better to a client. That I've never really thought internally how to make it smoother. So having somebody in-house to think about internal movement has been a whole game changer in its own.
It has been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about while you were saying all of that, like back to my time in the corporate world and like how, you know, a company at that scale, meaning Hallmark, operates. And it's like, I remember back to, you know, onboarding as a manager and, you know, having the like COO come speak to us for a certain amount of time. And then we would go do this and then we would go do that. And then another executive leader would come speak to us. And it almost gives me goosebumps that we're starting to get to that point to where we have such good structure built out to where we can do that. Like
so we're going to compete with Hallmark here soon.
Hey.
We're making cards.
We're going to have a night shift.
And they're going to be hilarious.
If there's an industry I would not recommend getting into, it would be that. Let's make e-cards because I think that's what they should probably do.
We'll make gifts.
Yeah. So no, that's it's funny how you never think that, like, it seems so far away in the beginning. Like it's something like even, you know, on the operations side, like think, yeah, we don't need to do that. Like in the beginning, like HR policies.
I think about also how like simple I thought it was, like plug all those things in. It goes right back, like the book Scale Up talks about like complexity levels of communication as you scale. I don't think I really understood like really how, when they talk about like every time that you multiply a person, you go from 2 people, you're at a 4, 3 people, you're at an 8, 4 people, you're at 16, 5 people, you're at 32 to 64. Like you're doubling the communication complexity every single person that you bring on. And I don't think I really understood that. And I think that's why for a long time we were kind of stuck at that. We were teeter-tottering between 12 and 15. You're like, up, we come down, we go up, we come down. But it's like that 15, the communication break there was realistically me. I was way too heavily, I was the communication in every one of those. And it's like, same thing I look at with our software now. That like, I'm not going to say I'm fucking any wizard in Notion at all. Today, you guys are zipping through that. We're like, we can do this, this, this. We tag this person, we go through this. I'm like right over my head. But I'm watching that and I'm like, watching that take place in a leadership meeting. I was like, if I've done one thing right, I've put the right people in this room. Which that's a good feeling to me, that it's like, I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just need to know how to place the right people in the room. And I feel like that at those times, I know that it's like, we built the right foundation to have the right people from a leadership side, to have the right people on the marketing side, to have the right people that we go over those things. And it's like, yeah, we talk about those actionable steps. Did the binders get done? No. But it's like, did a lot of other things happen from last week to this week? Yeah. Like,
yeah. And I think there's one thing that you have to be aware of, or at least think about thinking about the perspective of how something's perceived when you're doing that. If your thing, it's all that you think about is innovating the process, but it's someone's everyday, what they look at and focus on, and it's their life at work. And there is such a thing as change fatigue too, to where know when to pick and choose your battles, know when it's a good time to implement stuff, when you need to lay off for a little bit too. I think that's something that it's easy to lose perspective and forget about that whenever you're operating on that frequency of, okay, we're doing great, we're making this thing so efficient, let's keep going, more efficiency, how can we keep driving this? It's like, hold on, let's slow down, do a little check-in here, see how we're doing with all of these changes, and if we need to pump the brakes for a second, because that's okay too.
Which I think what we've done a really good job about is getting the feedback of the people that are in the process. So I think a lot of times our conversations, why I think that they're going the direction that they are, it's not like we pop in every day and we're like, hey, we think we should do X, Y, and Z. Like, we're making changes in those meetings from feedback from content. We're getting feedback from the marketing side that we know that, like, hey, okay, this thing that we implemented here is now putting too much on this person and this person. We need to change it. And I think us also being very clear with those people. Like today I had a conversation with a couple of people afterwards. I'm like, hey, thoughts on change, things like that. Like, well, we think there's a problem here. I'm like, this is why we're doing it this way, and this is where we're trying to get. And they were like, the thing we're most thankful for is that you're transparent on letting us know of like where we're going with it and why that is being put in place. Instead of just being like, hey, follow this blindly, trust us. Like, and I think that's what happens in a lot of companies is like, we're doing this and no one knows fucking why. Like, and I see it all the time in companies that they change something and no one knows why it was changed. And like, this is fucking dumb, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I've always, like, even when we implemented Notion in the beginning of the year and we pressed that so hard, at that time, it seemed like a lot of additional work. But at that time, I knew 100%, I'm like, we do not scale past 20 people without something like that.
Now I don't know how we operated with that.
Dude, but for real, like, and it's like, I see these like monumental like points within the business as we've like, and the funny thing is, it's like most of the time, it's like one of my biggest like butting of heads at somewhere that when I'm butting heads like really hard somewhere, I'm like, this is a good thing that we're putting in. Because I remember it was Dre, Dalton, I fighting about Lightroom when they were individually editing photos on phones.
Dude, we were stuck in our ways, man.
Do what?
We were stuck in our ways.
Stuck in their ways.
And I talked about it for like
somewhat.
I talked about it for like 3 weeks, and finally I just unleashed, and it was standing right here in this garage. Yeah, it got done, but it was not done efficiently at all. And we could have done fucking 3 times as much if we knew what we knew now. Like,
yeah.
In hindsight,
So it happens editing on the phone.
Not
doesn't work
efficient.
very well.
Yeah. But
Very inefficient.
I think a lot of times when it's coming from somebody that's not doing it, it's looked as like, oh, just another process or just something else to add to my list of things to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to make it easier. That's something I have to learn right now. I know a lot of times when you're learning something, but now we look at the people that plug into the content side, or not the content side, but the marketing side, like how efficiently they run now. So I'm like, I don't know why, like, we didn't implement Notion like in the basement. Wow. How much better we would operate.
Well, we were just also able to yell over to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, bud.
Hey.
Can you check that for me?
Those videos
Look at
edited
that,
yet?
will ya?
Yeah.
Hey, Ricky.
Yeah, just look over this way. I don't know. I got 2 videos
Honestly,
to do today.
It would be weird if I messaged you sitting right here.
It would be.
Hey, Ricky, where are these videos? And then I'm just looking at my
Just
computer.
Typing back. Nobody says anything.
Like Dre
Everybody's
sent me a
headphones
text
on.
message today while we were in the same room.
Yeah.
And it was only us 2. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Weirdo.
So to make sure there was a receipt.
Hey, it's documented.
That's an HR guy if I've ever
Sounds
met
like
one.
HR.
No, but I think that it's funny as you progress. Like today when we're sitting there, like my first thought process, when we're talking about this new process, I'm like, what if we put this in Slack and we do it this way? Just because I'm like, now I'm thinking about as many like touch points as possible to where the process, like I think now of accountability of different spots.
Mm-hmm.
When you have so many people and so many touch points, like from my head, like if Dalton sat in his office and watched Netflix all day long on his computer, I have no earthly idea. Like Dalton could watch
only on Thursdays.
Yeah, it's only Thursday.
It's actually Fridays.
But
Okay, my day's Thursdays. At least, as long as it's not the same
Yeah,
day,
you
we're
can't do the
good.
same day.
Gary's on Tuesday.
but it's funny when you look at something like that would not have worked in the basement at all. Like if somebody started watching Netflix for like within 5 minutes, somebody'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing over there?" like that fast. Now somebody could sit in their office and absolutely do nothing, and nobody would know. So it's more so on if work is getting done and what that process looks like to make sure work's getting done, and it's making sure that there's all those touch points and where the accountability's at. Where it's like, okay, so if we have process A to Z, where is the break? Because it used to be really easy to figure out with a few people in the basement. No, it's like a problem can be presented to me and I have no earthly idea where it went awry. So then you have to start actually like, okay, so this person's doing their job well. Like, what does this look like? Okay, this is getting over to here. This is what the input looks like. Are we messing up somewhere to the output? Like, or is it the output to what is being posted out? Like, where is it at? So it's funny as it like progresses. And once again, I talked about here by the end of the year, we're going to be having a completely different conversation that there's going to be more plugins and a longer cycle and more people that specialize in different areas that we're going to be like, we're going to be confused at where we were now, like of how we didn't understand what we know in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that's like the coolest thing about it is like the we see this constant progression. I think the coolest thing of all of it is actually this podcast. That one day we're going to have full documentation of the whole entire fucking thing.
It's pretty cool.
We should have started about a year earlier because that would have been a complete shit show.
That would have been bad.
Can you
That would've been
imagine?
bad. Oh, I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
that's true. We weren't so good at audio.
We'd have been
Oh.
sitting here and everybody would have been watching our mouths move.
Yeah.
No audio.
These dudes not know how to use mics. But no, I just think that there's so many things happen. I think that's like the people that come our way, they want to be a part of something different. And I had somebody a few weeks ago, they're like, do you think that MMG's like kind of turned into like a cult-like following thing? I was like, 100%. I was like, I think if you don't build that, I don't think you're building the right thing. I was like, because look at what Andy Elliott has built. Everyone says he has a cult, but dude went from like overnight just blowing up. But he has his beliefs, he follows his beliefs, and the people that align with him follow the same beliefs. And you look at Andy Frisella, like he has a cult following. 100% mad respect for what he's built. Like, but it's something that people believe in what he believes in and they follow him. And it's the same thing that I feel like we're forging our own path, that we're not like every other marketing company. I don't want to be like any other marketing company. There's no marketing company out there, I don't care at what scale that I look at them, I'm like, I want to be like them. Like, we're going to have our own name in the space and we're going to have something that is so different. But I think that's why so many people reach out that want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And you could pick any big influencer or big company and say that they have a cult following.
Yeah.
Like that term, it's just, that's the world we live in now. It's the value of attention. Like there's nothing cultish about it. Like it's just, do you want people to see your stuff? And do you want people to listen to you and follow you and be a part of what you're doing?
Yeah.
It happens every single day, whether you know it or not. Like the same person that said that, I guarantee you, is cultish following certain brands, certain influencers, everything on social media.
Yeah.
It's the world that we live in.
It is.
So it's not something that, has a negative connotation, but like play the game,
And the thing is, like, my deal is years ago, I was so fearful, like, the people that didn't agree or the people that didn't like who we were or didn't. I'm like, well, I don't want to press the envelope too much to one side. And like I was walking on the treadmill this morning talking with Jamie, and I told him, I was like, dude, I've came to a spot that I really do not give a shit if people don't like what we do. I go, we're gonna have that line of people that that doesn't bother me at this spot. Like my deal is if the people within the walls are happy and I'm taking care of the people that are around me, why the fuck does some random ass person I don't even know, their thought and their opinion matter? Like that today I was we're sitting in Ricky and Ab's office and he's reading through all these messages that we get on Facebook. He's like, he's sitting there, he's like, this guy says our video is dog shit, blah, blah. I'm like, that dude has a private account that has fucking nothing posted on it. I mean, why would I care what that guy has to say? Like, it used to kind of bother me when we would have like one negative comment. I'm like, delete it. Like, now I'm like,
dang, what's that guy's problem?
I'd rather reply to him now.
Now that's
for real.
Yeah. Now that's the point. I'm like, dude, go for it.
Yeah.
I want the negative comments.
Yeah.
Like,
bring them on.
Like, guess what? The more successful we become, the longer the line of haters is going to become.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. On the sports podcast on Fort Verts, someone commented and said, I guess balding white men are the future of the NFL. And I commented back and I said, you're damn right we are. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Glad we're on the same page, buddy.
But it's like, I mean,
No reply.
No reply. Yep.
Yeah. Since the podcast has started, I mean, this is what,
132-ish?
132-ish episodes?
It's crazy.
I think I could probably fill this room with comments of how many people have called me fat. Like, there have been a lot on shorts and things like that anyone can have a podcast. That's a true statement. Anyone can buy some fucking mics and start a podcast. You know what? If you can drop 130 fucking episodes in 130 weeks straight, I might listen to you a little bit. I might give you the time of day just to have actually fucking even reply back to you. But it's Steve6969 that's never posted something on fucking YouTube that has fucking some stupid shit to say. Like, doesn't bother me one fucking bit. I literally do not lose a second. And a lot of times I'll go look at Andy Frisella stuff. I'll go look at Andy Elliott stuff, and I'll go look at all these different dudes stuff, and I look at the fucking hate that they give. Just laundry, like thousands of comments. I'm like, dude, this is nuts. Like on a single post.
If you see a bunch of comments, you know somebody's talking some shit in there.
Oh, for
Every
sure.
time.
You don't like watch something. You're like, dude, that was a good fucking video, and then you see like 3,000 comments. You're like, I bet those are all positive. Like, I bet those are all people that are like fueling into whatever he's saying. No, it's small-minded people. It's people that you're gonna have. The world is so full of negativity. It's so full of hate. It's so full of all those other things that I look at the bigger purpose that we have, we help with so many other things outside of just a marketing space that we get to make a difference. And jealousy, I mean, bad look. A lot of people are jealous. The more successful you become, the more jealous people get. I mean, we're even seeing it at our fucking social hours. It's people that you even think that you know are jealous. And it's one of those things. It is what it is. And I'm always going to focus on surrounding myself with the right people and who I spend my time with. And I look as, I know I'm sitting at the table with the right people right now. That's for damn sure.
All I got to say to the people who are jealous is keep fucking watching.
Just wait till we hit year 5.
It's only going to get fucking worse for you.
Yeah. If you ever thought you were coming to watch this fucking fall, you're gonna be watching for a long fucking time, and it ain't coming. I'm pretty sure there's a Dom bottle up there that says 98% of companies fail in the first 2 years.
What year did we sign that Dom bottle on? Anniversary?
That one's on 4.
Oh, huh.
I think there's a 3-year signed one too. I think there's a 2-year signed one. So
2%?
2%. So
cool.
Guess we're in the 2%. I would say we're probably in a higher.
And the 1% worldwide.
1%
Yeah,
worldwide, according to Dre.
Dre.
Dre's facts.
But he also thought Morgan Wallace was a person. So take that for what it's worth. But any other final thoughts on this? I don't know. I don't even know fully what we technically covered, so I don't know what you want to take this.
I don't
podcast.
either, but I genuinely, honestly think this was the best MMG podcast we've done.
I could agree with that. I think that it's, I don't know. I've just became, 2 years ago didn't think I could have a higher passion for what we did, and it just continues to increase, and the confidence continues to increase, and I don't know, I think it's every single time someone's like, "Do you know how hard it's going to be to keep getting A players? You know how hard it's going to be to keep getting A players?" I think it's becoming easier.
I was gonna say, I think it's getting
going
easier.
in the door. I mean, it's like every day I'm seeing, who's that? That's Jaden. She's our new salesperson. We just hired her. Great. Excellent. And I was like, she's out making appointments already. I'm like, cool. Okay.
Good. The last
Love
salesperson that we had sat behind a computer and didn't do anything for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
and that's the
We had a couple of those.
Not every
I
hire
didn't
is
know he
perfect,
left.
but
Yeah.
for sure. And it has gotten easier.
It has.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think that we look at where we're going to be at year 5. It's going to be something that right now we on average have 15 to 30 people reach out a month want to work for us.
A year ago, that was not happening.
No. And we look at it in a year, the 2 years from now, we're going to have hundreds of people a month.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get a cherry pick whoever we want. But it's also, I think that speaks volumes to every single person that's inside the walls of MMG. That's not me whatsoever. That is the way you guys carry yourself. That's the way that Drake carries himself, to the rest of the leadership group, to fucking every person that walks within those walls, that they can tell that there's a different atmosphere, there's a different environment, there's something different about it. And we see it with every business meeting we have. And that's the other thing, that's probably my hardest thing that I have when people come in. They're like, dude, this is it. I'm like, no, this is the starting line.
Yeah. Get on the ride and hold the fuck on.
Yeah, because it's hard when I tell people about the Fantasy Factory. Like, I don't tell a lot of people about it. I actually try to compress myself from even talking about it, because it seems so far away to a lot of people that it's like, I'm looking for land now.
Yeah, I mean, we're literally just gonna have to pretty soon.
Yeah. And we thought we got 8,000 square feet and that was going to be enough space. Like,
We're like, oh, we're gonna have room for a
It'll
while.
be good for a little bit.
yeah. And it's,
You know, the office space is like fucked up my perspective of square footage in general. All like, 8,000 square foot office, that's small. 4,000 square foot house, that's smaller than the office.
but the funny thing is, most people look at office spaces like, I've literally had people tell me, they're like, well, you can fit X amount of people per square, like the square footage, like they're giving me these numbers. I'm like, dude, I'm not putting them in cubicles.
They had 50 people in our last office.
No shit. That was a complete cluster F. It was so cluttered.
Think about if you walked in the front doors, just cubicles, not
Bro,
not
we
my
could
truck,
fit
not the
100 we
car.
could fit-
There was no clear shelf space at all. Just
Dude, we could fit
rows.
100 people in the office where we're at now.
I don't know where they would park.
I don't know where the fuck well, we'll get the bus running a little better,
Yeah.
and we'll bus them in.
Bus them
We'll
in
get a little
everywhere.
lift kit so she can turn.
But like, that's the crazy thing I think about is like, I also today, like in an interview, guy started and he asked me, he's like, what's your vision? I was like, that's something I think we'll discuss further on after you being here, because I'm like, I don't want you to think it sounds crazy. I was like, where we're at now, I'm like, just over 2 years ago, we were sitting in a basement. So I'm like, most people think this is like a finish line.
Yeah.
It's like,
Second office.
yeah, I'm like, dude, when we came out the basement into the river market, everyone was like, dude, this is legit. I'm like,
You got a mural,
and,
office space.
but I sit there and actually think about what we can build and what we can have, and like it's very obtainable. Like,
and I think that's a good, like, for anybody who has a big vision, not everybody has to get it, and you don't have to share it with everybody, because 99% of people are going to tell you that it's dumb and they're not going to understand it. It's yours, and that all that matters is that you believe it and the people around you believe it that are close in your circle.
So the funny thing was, I talked to Jamie 2 nights ago on the phone for like almost 2 hours, and we were
J Tough.
Shout
out Jamie.
So I talked to him for 2 hours, and he goes, "You want to know the craziest thing?" He goes, "It's been 6 years ago now." He goes, "You were sitting in your office trying to learn editing software." He goes, "You had a camera you didn't know how to use." He goes, "You had a drone that you crashed in the ceiling of the dealership." that didn't work. And he goes, "I was so pissed when I'm sitting there desking deals," and he goes, "We're working car deals and you're fucking around with whatever you're fucking around with." He goes, "I have no other idea what it is." And he goes, "And now," he goes, "I get to see where that vision took you." And it's just like, he goes, I couldn't be more proud of every single thing you've done. And it was hard 4 years ago. You talk about a vision, everyone thought I was fucking Looney Tunes over here. And it's like you said, no one has to get it. The only person I'm going to say, I don't know if Dre's always understood my vision, but he's always trusted me in where I've went. And I think my dad didn't like fully understand even what we were doing. But he always had like belief in that I could be successful.
Yeah.
And
some would say certain family members of ours still don't understand what we do.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing that I had the whole entire time was like, Madison told me, she's like, "No matter what you want to do," she goes, "you're going to be successful." She goes, "I have no question in that." So it was nice to have like that in my corner every single night, when those days that I thought like I'm wasting my time, I don't know if this is the right idea. And it's, once again, the confidence level is way easier now when I have everybody and their mother like, "Oh, you're killing it. You're killing it." I'm like, "Thanks." Like, you're in the basement, you're like, "We're losing a lot of fucking money. I don't know if this is a good idea." So I think trusting the process and getting through those hard times are what make the wins that much better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't hang it up when you crashed that first drone immediately.
I wanted to. We actually had no drone footage for a little bit until I got another drone, but
they didn't know how to do audio either. That didn't stop us either.
Yeah.
So.
But I will say the second drone, I did a little bit of YouTube watching on the second one. And they say, if you're going to learn how to fly a drone, go outside, put it really, really high because there's nothing to hit up there. I was like,
and it's not going to fall out of the sky.
That makes sense.
That actually, because at first I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go real high with it to make sure I don't mess it up.
I don't lose it. I don't want to lose it.
I don't think I realized how far they could go away from you. And so my first one, I was like, I'll just learn how to fly it inside. And that was, don't do that.
Dude, I still didn't understand that until like a month ago. We were at SK and we're pulling in there, and one of the content creators is like, I'm parking in the business next door's lot. I was like, "I think it's okay if I park." And he's like, "Oh yeah, they're cool. We had to go on the roof and get a drone one day." We were at SK flying the drone all the way over to KC Mattress City, like all the way across the highway to get footage. And then the battery started to die. So the drone auto returned, but it didn't make it. So it landed on the roof. It's like, holy shit, that's like a mile away.
I have had that happen when, were you with me out at CP?
I don't think so.
So CP, I was like, I mean, they have these huge mine sites. So, I mean, they're probably a mile plus long to the far side. I'm literally as far away as I can be. I'm sitting on my truck and I'm like, I still have like 15% battery. I'm going to go way over there and then just fly this, like, sun's peeking over the hill. I'm like, I'm just going to zoom all the way across. So I get way over there and it's like, beep, 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 beep. And it's like emergency lane. I'm sitting there. I'm like, where is a dozer or a truck not going to drive and run this thing over? So I'm like going down and you can't tell like where like the low spots are and everything. So I'm like, I think that looks like a dry creek bed. So I'm like laying this thing over in this creek bed. I'm wearing Hey Dudes at the time.
Yeah.
So I get in my truck. I was like, I got to go find this thing. All I can see is where I'm like, I know it's like way over there. I'm like, I don't even know how to get my truck over there. So I'm driving through this like mine site all the way down the fucking deal with rock trucks and everything. I'm like, that's the only way I know how to get over there. So then I'm down there. I'm like driving all the way across this thing. And they're probably like, what the fuck is this dude doing down this like black pickup? I go way out there and then I park my truck and I have to hike down and go through this. Like I'm hiking out there in my Hey Dudes, sopping wet to finally find my drone that's out in this creek bed that luckily was in like a 4x4 little dry area that I landed it. And I was like, so now I make sure if I'm going to go anywhere outside of like 100 feet of me, it's got like 50% battery.
Yeah.
So
drones are amazing. I mean,
drones are absurd.
We do drop bombs halfway across the world from shipping containers in Nevada and Arizona.
That's true.
There's some science to it.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But no,
ours just take pictures.
Bigger batteries.
Yeah. Ours they do video too.
And video.
But no, we've I think we've came a long way in what we've done. I think we got a long way to go. But I couldn't be more happy with everything we've done to get to this point. So everyone here, keep up with what you're doing the right thing. Dre, you're doing good. We don't have Lauren here. Lauren, you doing good?
You did really good pressing the camera button to make sure we got all this footage. Appreciate it.
But Dre had a rough reel from last week, so he wanted to take this week off. But we'll end it with that. So it's M3 Podcast. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.